I want to talk to you about a dirty secret of Agile coaches. Okay. We're getting out all the dirty secrets this episode. You're expected to drive transformation. I know we don't say transformation anymore. You're expected to drive towards the product operating model. See what I did?
Oh, nice.
We're selling books on the podcast. You're also expected to deliver results. You're expected to change organizational behavior, but you can't fire anyone, and you don't have control of budget, and you don't have control of executive decisions, like they make those. So yeah, you're essentially a middle manager, except powerless.
I feel like one of those clowns in the circus with his hands shackled in a burlap sack. You're supposed to do all of these things, but you have absolutely no authority.
That's
on
right.
Anything.
That's right. We want you to move mountains, and we don't give you any tools to do it with. So that's the question then, because there are coaches out there that can do it.
Yeah. Oh boy, what a great topic. Some savvy coaches can pull off a lot, but they've built up a repertoire of their skills over their career. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what are some of the things that are in your control, even without authority, that you can try to cajole your teams into doing, but through just influence, basically. Let's start with the premise that if you don't have any authority, is there anything you can do, right? We'll start there. How do you do that? Well, first of all, you are a catalyst, right, as a change agent. And you need to establish trust with your team. If they don't trust you to make changes, you've already lost. So that's the first thing, is establish trust and credibility with them. And then you can move smaller, like rocks first, maybe pebbles, then boulders before you get to the mountain. So how do you do this with a bunch of people that you don't even know when you first go in there, but they all know that you have absolutely no authority? So you have no hire or fire authority. You have no authority to move team structure. Eventually, you'll get to the point where you can do this.
You can highly suggest.
You can do all of those, but they typically fall on deaf ears. That's if you're first into an organization trying to do this. So let's start with trust. First of all, how do you build trust?
I was hoping you would ask that question, and you build trust. You build trust. You build trust by you turn the airplane up to 11. You turn the knob up to 11. That's how. No, I don't know. Should I cut that out? I think I should leave that in.
Just leave it.
You build it by doing what most people would probably tell you in this category, which is, in order to approach influence without authority, you need to build strong personal relationships. And I just gave this at a networking event we were at last night. I just gave this advice to somebody who said, well, I'm a Scrum Master, and I'm having difficulties and I don't know what to do. And my suggestion was, well, if you're a Scrum Master, that it tells me that you are a people person and that you like building relationships. So what I would suggest is you start cultivating deep relationships with people all around the business, because you never know when your team is going to call, pull that thread and ask for a favor. And it'd be way better if it was coming from a friend, coming from someone that they trusted, because they have a relationship with. Now, the team may be too busy to have those relationships, but now, your job is exclusively to have all the relationships with all the people in the business, so that in the future you have that stored up. So,
I would add a little more to that and say it's not just building relationships in the business. If you're a matrix organization, you should try and build relationships everywhere. I mean, everywhere. So it starts with maybe at the reception desk, security, because your team may need you to come in on a weekend one time to come in and maybe do a deployment or something like that. It helps if you have these connections, if you know people.
Or in my case, where you work out of government offices sometimes, it really helps with the security people, because you're coming in with guests every other week and they're going through the sign-in process or whatever. It's much easier if you just know all those people.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. So if you're coming in as a Scrum Master or Agile coach, one of the first things you should do is do what I call a force field map. So it's, again, 2x2, typical sort of BCG matrix. And just write down who are the people that can help you and who are the people that can hinder you, right? So the detractors, if you will. And put their names in these. You're not sharing this document with anybody, first of all. This is just for your own use, so you can understand where things lie. When it talks about strong and weak forces, it's just about alliances, right? Where do you need to form alliances? And 3 out of the 4 corners, I'll tell you, just jumping ahead a bit, 3 out of the 4 corners should be where you need to build alliances. And the 4th corner is, Not where you don't need to, it's just not now. So you'll come back to it at some point, right? You start to get to know more people. So net, all of them. You need to build alliances as much as possible across all of them.
Like in the old arguing agile back and forth here, the kind of what you're outlining is the relationship first method of building influence. So I'm trying to think if there's a pushback on this. Like, I really can't think of any in this broad category of like the more relationships that you have banked, the more effective that you'll be. You know, like this usually comes out, you know, the podcast that we've talked about, this comes out as communication skill or other things. Like, it's not exactly that, though.
No, so communication skills can be learned. We'll come back to whether this is something that you can learn or is it innate. Collaboration, we've talked about in previous podcasts, right? But this is a bit more than that. When you're collaborating, you need something from them, they need something from you. But when you're building relationships, there's none of that.
Well, here's a pushback that actually is a good one. I mean, it's not good, but it's as good as you're going to get from me in this category, which is you're building these relationships. The real substance isn't truly, you don't actually care. You're just doing it to bang, you know what I mean? You're basically manipulating, right? Like people realized that you're not being authentic. So it's like you're spending a lot of time doing it.
You may as well not bother if you're doing that, right? You're basically faking it and don't do it, because you've wasted, to your point, you've wasted time and energy getting to the point where you're getting nothing from it. In fact, it's worse than not doing it at all, because people will know that you're faking it. And then you've got no chance of getting their trust.
The other part of this is going to be those people that you will definitely run into that say, that's okay. Like, wait, you're just talking to people? And you're not even really necessarily about work stuff. Isn't there important things you could be doing? You know, you're going to run into those people.
Yeah, I try to just go around those people because there's nothing more important than building relationships, right? The time to build them isn't when you need something. The time to build them is ahead of time. When you don't, just go ask people, or walk by the security desk and just say hi to them. You know, how's their day going? Seriously, I mean that. If you do that, what will happen is your name, your face will stick in their minds. And when you go in again, they'll greet you with a smile. Now they're already open with the possibility, if you did have a need, you know, like getting in the building after hours, whatever it might be. So the time to do it is not when you need something, it's before. And also, don't stop. Just keep doing that.
Is that the old, like, when's the best time to plant a tree, like 20 years ago? Is that kind of like
day one?
It kind of is.
It really is. Day one.
Yeah. When's the best time? It's 20 years ago. When's the next best time? It's like right now, today.
Never too late.
Okay. If you choose to go through the process of building your influence by building relationships, which I think we both will suggest, like on the product management side, I'm only trying to play devil's advocate here, but on product management, that's just not a job you can do without doing this. So if you choose to do it, like, to be authentic, be reciprocal, don't try to shortcut it, that kind of stuff. This is not something you can shortcut. And I would say, I don't know if you have any particular advice on like ways to go about it, like focus on other people's like goals, challenges, you know what I mean? Because you also, like, the other side of this is you never know when you might be in a position to unblock somebody that you didn't really even realize that.
Exactly. So you've heard me say this many times with them. This actually came up last night, WIIFM, or what's in it for me? So think about it from the other person's perspective of what's in it for them. If you do that, you might be able to help them. So that's also true, that be prepared to give. If not, just listen. That goes a long way. If you just listen and then make a suggestion, maybe somebody can help them, right? So you can kind of connect the dots. That in and of itself is a good thing and a great help to people that are asking you for things. So, yeah, I mean, the time was yesterday and now, basically. Yeah.
If we're going to transition to the next category, the expertise and credibility as influence, I kind of hinted at this. You're going to get this from people is like, well, my expertise is my credibility. I don't need to waste time on talking to people and having one-on-ones and the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world. I don't need to spend time having one-on-ones. Yeah. I'm smart. Just look at me. Anyway, sorry, I was going to curse there. So that school of thought argues that deep expertise and demonstrated competence creates a natural authority. So I don't need the bank of influence by connecting and making all these personal relationships we talk about already in the podcast. I don't need that because I have the authority, because people respect me because I'm amazing. So when you consistently provide valuable insights and solve problems that other people can't, then you become the go-to person. People seek your input regardless if they like you or not, and then now you have the influence. That's. I see you cringing.
Yeah,
I see you cringing.
I can understand the thinking that because you're an expert, people will come to you, right? But that's not the same as having influence. That's not the same at all. They're simply coming to you for your technical prowess, for your guidance.
Yeah. Or because they have to.
Presumably because they have to, because if they didn't have to, they would go to somebody else who does have influence, right? And empathy and all of that. So people like this, people who think this way, typically don't like to share information. And when they find themselves out there looking for work for whatever reason, they're going to be in for a surprise.
Rude awakening.
Yes, indeed. Because the next organization they go to, depending on the culture of that org, they may not fit at all.
No. Well, you won't get through the interview process.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah.
Because you'll come across as the know-it-all rather than somebody who builds bridges.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've seen a few people and known a few people like that in my career. I mean, I'm telling you, even executives don't like to talk to these people, but they talk to them because they have to. And these people typically cannot talk at the same level. So, an example, right? These people are in a position of authority, so they automatically find themselves being invited to things like conferences or user conferences. It's fine here. Trade conferences, right? Yeah. So they're at a trade conference at your booth, and in comes somebody else, potentially a prospect, and they want to talk. And these people talk differently. Yeah, they talk tech talk, right? And they talk down to people that don't understand the technology that they understand. None of that bodes well for the organization as a whole.
Well, there is, if I'm going to stay on the arguing side of this one and then take a shower after, sorry, there is some credence to technical expertise. Like if I'm thinking about Agile coaches, for example, like on my program, I want an Agile coach that's been there before on a program of several hundred people and is not going to balk at leading a program retrospective with leadership up and down the chain. Like titles don't mean anything. Like I'm looking for someone I'm looking for the seen it all, done it all Agile coach who is not shaken by anybody challenging him, that kind of person. So there is some credence here to say when the pressure's on, I'm looking for that person that has the ability to perform.
Yeah, first of all, I think what you're describing is a seasoned professional.
Yeah, right.
But
also, we don't hire anyone over 27. So, I mean, we have a tough time hiring here at Brandon Ohm's Consulting.
We look for people that are under 27 with 20 years experience in AI.
That's called more energy. That's what it's called. That was the real. I will never stop bringing it up in the podcast like that. That's what I was told one time when hiring. Brian, you got to find people with, quote, more energy. I was like, oh, you mean younger? No, of course not. I would never say that.
Because it's illegal.
Wink.
There's a difference between the scenario you just described, somebody who's been around the block or been around many blocks, and they can not bat an eyelid standing in front of a town hall of 300 people, whatever it might be. But the previous discussion we just had was about people having the expertise and hoarding it, right? Because they want to appear meritocratic. Okay. This is what I bring, right? Yeah. And you need to come to me. And somebody who's an Agile coach or a business agility person would say, I'm not the bottleneck here, right? I don't provide the solutions. I want to co-create with you an environment where you can find the solution. So I think there's a difference there, because in the latter case, you're not hoarding anything. You don't even have that deep expertise. Yeah. You do in soft skills, facilitation skills, all of those things. But people aren't coming to you to learn that or grab that from you. They don't necessarily do that. But let's say you're an enterprise architect who understands database schemas and whatever else it might be. So people need to come to you. Yeah. So I think there's a difference there. Agile coaches, they're all the more eager to share their knowledge. So they'll go to a team and say, how about talk to a scrum master? You need to facilitate, but let me show you some tips. The other case, however, is I'm just going to give you just enough. Yeah. And then the rest you'll have to squeeze out of me.
Yeah. Another thing that it bugs me because it's true. That's why it bugs me is that being right, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to be heard.
Yes, it's very true. So have you come across people like that are always right?
Yes.
Right? And people say, oh, yeah, that's Mr. Know-It-all, Miss Know-It-all, and we're just going to ignore what they say. because you only have to be wrong one time and down goes your credibility.
Yeah.
But you're not worried about that because you're focused, you're riding your expertise all the time. So when people see you fall, in their eyes, because you failed at some point, even if it's not like an abject failure, you lose the trust.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
The only other thing about expertise, and we'll probably cover this later, so I don't want to harp on it now, is I've been in a lot of organizations where expertise starts as a cross-functional skill and then it turns into a silo. I think of like when I work with great UI UX folks, they start with one team and they're cross-functional and they're just like part of the team, and then they get moved because they're effective. They get moved off that one team into like a shared services model, and then they become completely ineffective because now they're serving 6 teams and they can't do any real meaningful work, and the company won't hire more people because they're not quite sure how to incent that position, because again, you've got to incent every position, otherwise, oh my goodness, what would people do if I didn't put a carrot and a stick in front of them or whatever.
This is one of the disadvantages of a matrix org, because you do have this situation where you have shared services models, pockets of expertise that are just lent out to the teams, just enough. So they're typically lent out for their hard skills, right? They're not lent out to instill knowledge and capability, I guess, in amongst those teams. They don't have time to do that. So they're going to just go in there, in your example, knock out some UI, go right back. And so the teams are left with a UI that they got. But if they have to change that, or if they have to come up with a new one, you're going to go back to that group again. Chances are you'll find somebody else going to do you. Yeah. And now you start all over again.
Right. Yes. And that's exactly what happens. And also, you nailed it when you said they'll knock out some UI. And that's not what I need from them, because I've got a senior front-end engineer. They're pretty good at UI design. They've seen a lot of different designs. And I've been coupled with a lot of mobile developers that are really smart about industry trends and what's on the forefront. So the UI is not what I need. I need the systemic view of the UX, the flow through the whole system.
The walking through of the customer experience is what you're looking for there, right?
Yeah, and that you can only get that when you go deep.
Correct. So you need time and investment of that person to come in and stay embedded with the team for an extended period of time.
So in this case, the expertise actually has done the opposite. Your deep expertise, because of bad org design, has now, theoretically, your deep expertise should make it so that you're respected and your relationships get deeper and like more people come out of the woodwork to like laud your the meritocracy, right? But in actuality, what's happened is now like everyone thinks you're flaky. You never stay on one thing long enough. You pivot, but it's like it's an effect of like everyone wanting to use your skill, and the organizational design is kind of undermining. So like in that case, we go right back to the very first category. Is like, well, what can you do there? Is like if you're connecting with people in and outside of like your day-to-day work, like that, what's going to come through is, hey, my skill's in demand and the company is like not willing to pay for more people. So I'm doing the best I can. And then you will treat them like a person doing the best they can, being overwhelmed. Not this person is flaky and whatever, without the relationship, you'll see that object of a person rather than the actual person who's well, the company doesn't want to buy they don't want to buy more time. So what are you going to do? You're going to get a crappy job.
Yeah, I have nothing more to add to that. Absolutely correct. Depersonifies your contribution.
I'm not sure about the takeaway in this category. Build T-shaped expertise, deep knowledge in your domain, plus broad understanding of adjacent areas. Share your knowledge through teaching and mentoring to multiply your influence beyond direct application.
That thinking is a little bit older now.
Yeah.
Yeah, now people are talking about M-shape, believe it or not.
Oh, right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. They're saying, so you have pretty solid skills. Those are the, I guess they're verticals if you do the M in a certain font. But you can ramp up and down quickly is what the down and the upward angles of the M are. Oh, dude, and I can't relate it to what we're talking about necessarily.
If I had a nickel for every time that I had to load a font locally just to be able to use it.
People hoarding, though, they'd be O-shaped, right?
Yeah.
Because they contain everything within the circle.
Everyone's adding so many shapes. Okay, so expertise, I get it. Expertise can get you invited to the table. But the next point we're going to talk about is value creation and results delivery, because the two sides of this one are the pragmatic approach to influence, which focuses on consistently delivering measurable value, which, by the way, I will tell you, this topic right now, I'm saving for a whole separate podcast. And the title of that podcast is, If You're Not Visible, You're Not Valuable, ? Like I already have the working title of that podcast because I think it's a strong podcast that we need to talk about. That idea that's stuck in people's minds is like, well, if you're not out there constantly marketing yourself, like you're worthless. I'm like, it sounds like you want to get into a fight. I don't know if I believe that. So the argument for this one is simple. If you make people's lives better and help them achieve their goals, so results are important. The results and metrics obsessed culture of like corporate America, what lends itself to short-term thinking, like that seems to undermine this. So like we're obsessed with creating value. None of us are going to be here 2 years, so who cares?
Listen, at the end of the day, if you're an individual who cares about improving your craft, right, you should care. It doesn't matter if you think you're not going to stick around. There's greener pastures everywhere, or at least it appears that way. So you should definitely care, right? And as far as like, okay, if you're helping somebody, that's one thing because it's overt, right? You're there, they're there. There's an interface there.
Yeah.
But after that, you peel away, and people that you helped at some point later could be talking to other people and say, hey, that Brian in product, right? He helped us out. If you've got an idea or if you're vexing on something, talk to him.
Yeah.
You won't necessarily hear that yourself.
Yeah, you won't.
But
you'll get a random Slack ping in the middle of the day. Yeah,
exactly.
From someone that you don't know.
You don't know, exactly. So when those kinds of things start happening, you know you're doing something right. But you can't set out thinking that's the end result you're shooting for.
Because you just be, it's noise in the middle of your workday. So it's like you're just like, oh, what can I help you with? Let me go. Let me give you the smallest thing you can to go away, and then eventually it turns into a big thing, and then that turns into a relationship. But it's just like extra stuff that makes you busier during the workday, and you won't realize it. Maybe now people listen to this podcast now will gain the self-awareness to realize that like that is an indicator that one of those seeds you put out there has now like
it's starting to sprout.
Yes, now it's grown. It's a tree, and it's like growing seeds of its own.
Yeah.
And the word is out. Keep doing what you're doing. That stuff happens to me a lot where people ping me for help where it's like, it's not going to help me accomplish any of the stuff that like my boss is looking for. And it's not going to help me like directly do stuff that my team is working on right away. Right. But it's stuff that I really should stop and make time to help people. Because if I like wheel way back, like 30,000 feet way up, then I would have the high level view to understand that like, oh, these people are approaching me because other people said, oh, I was successful when I went to Brian, and maybe you can talk to him about this thing, and maybe he doesn't know exactly about it, but he's smart, he'll work through it with you, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, if that kind of stuff happens to you, maybe you don't even realize it. Maybe now that you've heard it on the podcast, it'll ring through that,
Yeah, and if it happens to you repeatedly, then it builds on itself, right? Yeah. So that's the reward for me is when people call you that you don't even know, and they'll just say, so-and-so said you helped them out 2 years ago, and now I've come across a slightly different issue. Can you help me, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't contribute to what you're doing for your boss, but you're actually helping your organization.
The interesting thing about this one is I think about this, like, later career, it's harder to find an example to put my finger on. Early career, where I was just a QA analyst, QA engineer, working on a team, big team or whatever, like knocking out a multi-month project that the project management came down with the big book of pages and like with UML diagrams and stuff like that from back in the day. You never saw the user, you never heard from the user, you didn't know if what you did affected anyone. But you still, even in that environment, you had some developers and QA people and stuff like that went over and above and did a great job. Nobody ever saw, I mean, the people to your left and right saw it. No customer ever saw any results from your work because like that old way of working, where you went months until anyone could inspect your work, as opposed to like what we talk about all the time is like, oh, you're always working directly for somebody in short increments. The new way of working that is called the product operating model. That's what I'm calling it. It has nothing to do with the namesake of this podcast at all. Totally different. Yeah. But if you're working that way, like the structure lends itself to what we're talking about now. Just the structure of, hey, I'm delivering a small subset of features to you, like personally, in a very short turnaround time, and then you can tell us what you think, or what you like, what you don't like, what you think about it. And then we'll change what we're doing like that, like this, because the other side of this is the people that will say like, well, your metrics are what people are judging you on. So like the people side of it, like the like customer happiness or whatever, like if your customer happiness metrics are not factored into your raises and your promotion at the end of the year and stuff like that, then like they're not real. But the numbers that you're judged on, like they are real. So you need to do those, or otherwise you'll never get ahead.
That's absolutely true. I often think about those poor people that are at the end of a phone call or chat away supporting customers, right? People don't think about those people necessarily. Those people have a direct interface with frustrated customers typically, and they do a pretty good job on the whole of understanding their issues. So it doesn't matter what your role is. If you're trying to figure out what is really troubling the customers, go sit with your customer support reps for a bit, and you'll learn a lot from that. And then you work with product, sales, whoever, to kind of augment the product. Yeah, if you're not incented to do that, why would you?
Well, I say that all the time on the podcast. If you're not traveling with your sales folks and talking to prospects and doing prospecting with them, I mean, what are you doing? You're just talking to the customers that you already have committed buying your product. Like that's a limited scope.
Very much so.
So, yeah, there's a lot here. I mean, we can say on this topic, the whole rest of the podcast, focus on leading indicators of value rather than lagging indicators, which is kind of, we talked a little bit about that. I feel we could stay on this one for a long time, but I want to move us along just because we got a couple more points here to talk about. Document and communicate your contributions clearly, but always share credit with your team and try to be expanding that sustainable influence. So there's a bunch of stuff that we talked about in this category. Well, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, long term is the key here, right? Sustainable, and you're not in it for credit, right? How do you know you're winning? It's not just you as an individual solo person. Enable your team to get those wins, right? And then the teams will talk about you because you're the ones that actually influence them to get to that position where they can win.
So results open doors, like we already talked about that, but let's pivot to the dark side right quick.
Ooh.
Let's just take a minute or two to explore this for me because I need to explore this one. Remember the old Phoenix project? The dude that was like the go-to? I don't remember what his name was, Brett or Brent or
something like it was
Brad.
a B. Yeah.
The opposite of how to win friends and influence people here is like what the worst people do with this, which is the information hoarding. So the approach of becoming indispensable through information access and strategic positioning. So I have talked many times on the podcast about a particular developer I worked with in the past who was very good at this. Remember the old report story where it was like he had the reporting database and you had to just go to him. He would never give anyone access. You had to go to him to pull any report you want, and then he would like take out all the data that made development look bad whenever he would give reports. That's information hoarding.
Some people excel at this, right? We've come across those people in our lives already.
So that's how he kept himself in the middle. Influence for him was being the person that you must go to, the gatekeeper, might I add.
Which is interesting because modern organizations should be prizing exactly the opposite.
Transparency, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Transparency. People that build agency within the org. But no, we've come across people that will not share information with you.
Yeah.
And they will have multiple reasons. They'll throw n number of reasons at you. It's very complicated. It's like, what does that even mean? I understand technology, right? But it would be, it's too fragile if you touch it. It's too risky for you to touch it. It's like there's all these different things they'll come up with.
That was his excuse, by the way, is like, we can't have you hitting the production replication dip. It's very sensitive, and you could bring it down with a bad SQL query. You don't know the table structure. I'll just get you the data you need. That was, I don't know what, this is the ASMR version of that. I don't know why. This is solid gold right here because I will tell you there's gonna be at some point on this video there's gonna be somebody who had the same experience that I had with the same like disingenuous. This is a disingenuous person. Dealing with. But this is a common archetype that people will encounter.
Most definitely. If you've worked for more than a couple of years, I'm sure you've come across at least one person like this. Yeah. Unfortunately, they're very common. And you can tell, right? These people aren't going to cooperate with you right off the bat. You go to them with a request, and they'll just say, go formulate the request properly.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, can you help me? What about this? Do you want us to change?
Like we're gonna take a tangent on the podcast. It's been a long time since I monologued. Though. This is a nice thing about LMs and the agentic workflows of the future that are emerging now is everybody has a client. I mean, everybody has an MCP server that you can pull a client to, right?
Sure.
So like Elasticsearch has an MCP server. I'm sure Postgres, if they don't already, they're going to have an MCP server where you don't need to know table structure and the schema and all the table. You don't need to know in Elasticsearch. You don't need to know all the different fields, the hundreds of fields and the different specific types of query. You just need to pull a client, pull down the MCP server, have access granted to you, and then you just through an LLM ask it, hey, I need to know this data, and then it figures it out. These types of artificial barriers, these artificial silos that have been built, like, oh, you want stats about production? Ooh, well, we're on Elasticsearch. You don't have Elasticsearch query knowledge. You got to come to me because I'm the resident expert who knows all the data schema, and I've got the old enterprise, the relational diagram or whatever it used to be. I don't remember.
ERDs?
ERD, is that what the
Entity relationship diagram?
Yeah, entity relationship diagram. Yeah, the old database, like all the tables.
Yeah.
I've got
little
that
arrows from foreign key to foreign
that's
key.
Right. I've
Yes.
got that in my cube, and I'm the only one that knows all that. And oh, that's outdated. You don't know the latest changes. You don't like the future. In the future, you won't like that. That is not power anymore because all of the technology just connects it, so like you don't need to know all that deep stuff. You can still go find it and figure it out. Certainly, that's not going away. But for the casual, the skill level of the casual observer is what I'm saying, has been elevated up to a point where like your gatekeeping now, it becomes obvious that is what you are doing.
I agree with that. Resistance is futile for those people, I think, because anyone can learn how to query using prompts, right?
Yeah.
So anyone can do that. These people's power, if you will, is diluting by the day. So it won't be long before you won't even have to go to these people to find out stuff.
Well,
what will they do?
I mean, it was, well, first of all, it was always toxic what they were doing.
No doubt.
You know, so what will they do? Like, go find another place to hide? Like, maybe find another organization that is like less technologically advanced to hide in?
It's going to be increasingly hard to find.
Yes, at some point that will be too difficult.
Yes. So then it will be too late for these people to pivot to anything because they left it like that, right? Too late.
Yeah, the other thing about like a team lead, like a good team lead, like they become the connector between organizational silos. Like you and I would look at an organizational silo and be like, well, that's bad. You need to break that down and have cross-functional teams and not have these silos. I've been coupled with some really excellent team leads or solution architects, like those kind of people. They find a way to connect different teams and bring teams together despite the disadvantages of the org structure. I'm trying not to make this into a org design podcast,
which we will have at one point.
Well, I hope so. But there's that too. I mean, individual teams deliver. Those people that glue the program together, they don't deliver anything. So
well, they enable the teams, right?
Yeah, they do. But again, if we don't have metrics promoting Agile coaches and their ability to what they allow teams to do, we definitely don't have it for the solution architects or the enterprise architects, those type of people either. So yeah, becoming the go-to person, you know, like it's a good job to expand your influence if you're not abusing it.
And if you're the go-to person, for whatever reason, you happen to have arrived at that situation now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe think about spreading some of that knowledge, with your teams, right? That should be rewarded by the org rather than this person is elevated to their highest level of incompetence. Yeah. So if you're one of those people, by all means, start sharing that information with people.
All right, let's move on. So the takeaway here, use information access to facilitate better decisions rather than controlling them.
Correct. Yes.
So facilitation, we could have spent a lot more time in this podcast talking about facilitation. Sure. But again, there's going to be stuff that comes out of this that goes to another podcast that's on a similar vein. So I maybe. There's a lot of stuff here. I don't know. I got to think about it. In the editing, I'll think about what I want to take. Focus on being the synthesizer rather than a gatekeeper. Yeah. Always work towards making information more accessible, not less. More accessible, more transparent, not less. So those are a few takeaways here. So this category is about like the disingenuous way that information can give you a seat at the table. And the category we're going into, the final debate that we're going to have, our last point for the night. That's what we're saying. That's right. It's nighttime. No matter where you are right now, it's nighttime. The final debate centers around authenticity versus strategic influence. Should you focus on being genuinely yourself, letting influence flow naturally from your authentic leadership, or should you strategically adapt your approach based on what works for different stakeholders. This is a complicated one for the last category, so I don't know how fast we're going to buzz through this. But I think it was the stakeholder communication podcast that we did. We said you have to adapt your leadership style to the people that you're leading. And that is wrapped up in this one. But I mean to bring it up in the sassiest, most disingenuous method possible by saying, like, you're having one-on-ones and you're saying, hey buddy, what's going on? You don't really mean it.
Yeah.
You're doing it strategically to make yourself seen as, you know what I mean? Like, you're not really trying to help. Oh, it sounds like you've got some bad things going on. Well, that sucks, kid. I hope somebody solves it for you. I'm out. I got to get a coffee and go play golf.
Man up.
Yeah.
No, so I think in this one, this isn't a binary situation where you're always one or the other. I think you really need to adapt to the situation and the people that you're dealing with. We've dealt with some very sticky stakeholders, management style, and it doesn't matter what you do with them with the soft skills, you're just not going to make any headway. So for those kinds of people, I've been guilty of, I'm not saying manipulating, but strategically positioning my approach.
Okay.
And that's because, look, I only have so many hours in a day. I'm going to make sure I win. And this is how I win. But for others, I'm there for them without anything like what's in it for me personally.
Yeah.
I'm just there to understand, listen to them. And if I can't help, I can at least lend a shoulder.
So there's pushback in this one, just so I don't bury the lead here. Let me lead by saying my leadership style is completely authentic. And if people want to ask, like, hey, Brian, where do I stand with this? Or, hey, Brian, what's your opinion on this? I will tell them. And it will be brutally honest. And some people don't like that. Some people do not like my unfiltered initial take. But it's my initial take on things. And when I find out more, I'll change my opinion. And sometimes that rubs people the wrong way. The opposite side of that, which is very legitimate, says different stakeholders respond to different influence styles differently, and one size cannot fit all. And your authenticity is not an excuse for not like shuffling, not changing your personality or style to deal with a different person. So if you were in charge of all the product managers in the organization at home, right, and like you came to me and you're like, what do you think about this idea, Brian? And I'm like, this idea sucks. Like, it's full of assumptions. You haven't vetted anything. Like, if you go down this idea, like, you're going to waste 6 months of the UX time and whatnot. Why would you do that? No customers ever asked for it. It's terrible. And then you go to another product manager. They might tiptoe around a little bit more than I would. And now you're going to have a tough time consolidating that feedback together on an equal playing field, not realizing, like, not taking, like, personalities into consideration.
You do have to bear in mind who you're speaking with, right? And kind of craft your messaging accordingly. So here's the thing to remember. You can be completely 100% authentic all the time.
Yeah.
And you'll be successful most of the time.
Yeah.
But not all of the time. So the times when you're not successful will be with those people that really don't want to hear what you have to say. But they're going to ask you. And now when you say, well, this idea sucks, that's not what they want to hear. What they want to hear is, your idea is good, but I would just say, have you considered this?
Right.
If you haven't, you might. And then we can talk again maybe in next week.
I mean, you just summarized my career right there. There are certain people that they don't want to hear that their idea is bad. They just flat out. So you need to communicate with them in a way. You need to change your communication style to maintain your core principles, but to communicate with them in a way where you change their diaper gently. You sorry, that was uncalled for. That was unnecessary. You treat their you put a nice pillow under their ego, so there's no chance of it being bruised in the confrontation that happens when they're, for some reason, asking for your opinion, which, by the way, they're going to disregard anyway. And they're going to do that when you go into the conversation. But again, it's that I would argue here, you're not being, like, there's a level of authenticity that you have to throw a veneer over to deal with people like that. And maybe it's just an organization thing, but like, well, Brian, that's just your organization. And like, if you're in that organization, you got to play that game, quote, play that game. And that's the way it is. My arguing side of this one is you're either being authentic or you're not. Obviously, it's not black and white in reality. Yeah. But for the purpose of the podcast, the people that can be completely authentic at work with everyone and say, like, hey, I don't like that idea. Because the first time that you shout somebody down that says, I don't like that idea in a meeting. Like, again, I've been on development teams 20 years in a career.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of testers, developers shouted down by product owners or VPs or C-level executives when they raise this tiniest concern. And that person never speaks up again.
So, yes, absolutely. But here's the other side of it, right? So what happens when somebody, let's say at the C-level, asks you for something and you know their idea is stupid?
Yeah.
You tell them that up front. In this case, keep that resume updated.
Well, I wouldn't tell them their idea is stupid. I feel very lucky. I work in product management. I can say, like, is this something you're willing to bet on? Meaning, is this an assumption and you think that if we do X, then we'll get this result? Or do you know? And if you don't know, would you mind running this test against a customer? Or would you mind our team meeting with the customer to do something? Meaning, would you mind if the UX person or whatever, test the idea? And if that doesn't bruise their ego, then we're on the path to success. But if that little tiny question is seen as a challenge, now we're in a bad way. We're in a bad way from the start. We haven't even started yet.
But you started with simply asking, about the bet and so forth, right?
Yeah.
That's a different approach than just being very curt with somebody and just say, hey, listen, that idea is terrible.
I mean, listen, also, I will tell you also, like, I am curt with the people I can be curt with.
So you can be authentic in both cases, but how you come across, how you present your authenticity, it's veiled sometimes.
Listen,
and through necessity.
This is a great final area that we landed at in the podcast because it builds on everything we talked about earlier. I'll go get category number one because I have salespeople in my company now that I can tell them that is a bad idea and we can't do that. We don't have the systems. We don't have the expertise. It would take a long time. Yeah. And I will tell them we can't do that. I can only speak to them that way because we have a deep personal relationship and they're not going to be offended by it. They will immediately change and say, okay, I understand you're saying that, Brian, but I still think this is important. How can we pivot and do something else? And then we'll change the conversation to have a productive conversation. But I have traveled with them. I've spent a lot of time with the sales folks. Same thing with the development team. Same thing with customer service. Same thing with everyone in the company, executives up and down the chain. I spent a lot of time getting to know the person so that when I say, I don't think this is going to work, or I think this will work, or, you know what I mean, that kind of thing, they hear it differently. And
so flip side of that, right, is people that you really haven't got that equity with in terms of having a relationship and they are senior to you, you just tread carefully is what I'm saying, right? You're still being authentic, though. It's not like you're saying something that's disingenuous just to appease them. You're not doing that by any stretch. You should never do that. But you're positioning it with the way you started. What evidence do you have, right? Can we go get some? Those kinds of things. Yeah. That's a gentle way to push back at them a little bit instead of saying how high when they say jump. In both cases, though, I think you're being authentic. Like I said, in some cases, when you don't have that relationship, which you can have, by the way, with even C-level, after a certain period of time, you can say that, right? You can say, hey, Mary, that's a dumb idea or whatever. But you don't do that before you get to know that person very well.
Right.
So I think both are valid. It's just what you choose when.
Yeah. Let's move to the end. Like, where does that leave us? That's the wrap up of this podcast. Where does that leave us? Whether you're building relationships, developing expertise, delivering results, brokering information in a good way, transparent way, changing systems, meaning like the Agile coach, kind of like reforming the organization, delivering results. The real question is whether you're willing to do the hard work of building, the hard, slow work of building influence and relationships over time so that when you need them in the future, they are there. And if there's anything in this podcast, like there's a lot of like not black and white kind of stuff that we talked about today. Right. But you never know when you're going to need these relationships. And again, people that listen to this that are team members or product managers, you don't know when you're going to need these relationships. I think that's the main thing that I want to get across today. So continue doing it and consider it part of your job because you will need it.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't know when, but you will need it. And building relationships is your job.
There was enough content that got cut out of this podcast, and also there was enough stories that we cut out a couple little stories, I'm sure, during the podcast. We probably could do a part 2 on this.
Sure. Yeah,
very
I agree.
easily with more in-depth tips and techniques and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I want to have this one because we've been having a lot of product-centric topics in a long
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
And I want to have one that was more on your side of the aisle.
The aisle. I like that.
Yeah.
My side of the
That's
aisle.
right. That's
No, this is great. We can definitely do another one. But, if you guys think we should, let us know in the comments below. And tell us about what your experiences have been with this topic. And don't forget, like and subscribe.